Hey nerds, Todd Simmons here. I want to do another video. Actually, this is my first video. And thinking about what I wanted to do, I got a bunch of ideas, but it seems a lot of it came back to GitHub and what I'm doing on GitHub. So I figured, the first video I should do should probably something associated with GitHub. And one of the biggest solutions, one of the biggest problems, I should say, I had to find a solution to involved GitHub and logging in. And not the initial login to GitHub, right? That's pretty easy. There's a lot out there on how to do it. But running certain pieces of automation from GitHub, and that led me to here, my first video on how to set up your system to SSH to GitHub. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So you can see I've got 3 screens that I'm sharing at this point. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation just so you can see what it is that I'm doing. In addition, I've got my Windows command prompt down here. I do have a Windows PC that I'm doing this from. And then I actually have my GitHub login over here on the right. So jumping into it, why? So as far as SSH, one, it's more secure. So, I know that you can, generate a login key and some other things. But this is going to be the most secure method to log into GitHub. Also, whenever you're doing a private repository, the logins associated with it, if you're trying to do, whether you're doing Git clones or whether you're trying to run, some Python directly on Git, you're going to have to log in probably twice. And that second login is the tricky one. And we want to do it via SSH. And more specifically, we want to do it with keys. So, we're going to generate a private and a public key to do this. Now, when you're running your code, and I'm talking specifically about automation, so we're talking about Ansible, whether it be Ansible Galaxy, Ansible Tower, Ansible AWX. Actually, Tower is now Ansible automation platform, but or whether you're just running Python scripts, or whether you're using another automation tool like Jenkins, doesn't really matter, right? SSHing to GitHub is going to be the preferred method, quite frankly, because it's the most secure. So one step further, right? I know that I've talked about login via SSH, but if someone says, well, HTTPS is secure, well, if you're just doing it from your individual machine, sure. But if you're using an automation platform, and especially say a shared automation platform, if you determine that you're going to log in using that HTTPS link that GitHub gives you, you're going to have to use your username, password, or your login token. You're going to have to put that in Unicode and make that part of the send with your HTTPS request. That's going to show everybody your username or password, right? When we do it via SSH, we're not going to do that. So once again, I recommend everybody set their GitHub up so when you log into it, you can use the SSH protocol because it's secure. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to generate keys. Now, the way that this works is we generate keys. We have our private key and we take the public key and we put it on Git. So we actually send up our private key encrypted. It's SSH, right? We're not sending anything clear to GitHub, and GitHub uses our public key that we're going to place on GitHub to authenticate us. That's what makes it secure. So there's no username or password. You're not typing anything in, right? It's just going to happen. So even if you're using another method, maybe even from the command line, you're still having to put in that password or whatever it is all the time. This is an added benefit that you're not going to have to do that anymore. So you can do this pretty much on any machine, whether it be PC, whether it be Macintosh, whether it be Linux. The command, funny enough, is actually the one command that's kind of the same between all of them. And it's our ssh-keygen command. Now, on Windows, you want to make sure that you have SSH installed. But if you've installed PuTTY or Secure CRT or anything like that, it's going to be installed. If you want to know, just type SSH like I have here. And you'll see we're going to get a response. And that response will give us the different output from the SSH. That just shows you that the command's active. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the keygen command. So it's ssh-keygen, which is very simple. Now, you could start there, right, and it will generate a key for you that would work. I'm going to show you the way that GitHub recommends, right? So the default keygen, if you did that, would do, the modulus would be like 3072 or something like that. This is going to be a little bit higher than that, probably 4096. but it does it in a different format. And this particular format that we're looking at is the ed 255.19 format. So we just type -t, and that's going to give us the type. We're going to tell it we want the ed 255.19 format. Okay, then we're going to do a -c, and this is actually to identify yourself on GitHub using your email. So this is the email address that GitHub has for you, which would be part of your login. Mine's pretty simple. Okay, when you type that in there, it's going to start to generate that key pair. So the first thing it's going to ask you is, where do you want to put it? You can put this key pair anywhere you want, but understand that you're going to have to type out the entire location if you want to change it. By default, it's going to put it in your home directory, right? You can see mine here for my Windows PC. If you're on a Linux machine, it's just going to be in, home / whatever your username is. Be careful, because if you're logged in as root, it's actually going to put it in root. So I'm going to leave it here at the default, and notice the name down there. It's going to name it ID_ED25519. So when I hit enter, it's going to ask me for a passphrase. It's actually going to ask me for this twice. Now, I'm not real big on passphrases, because you have to enter the passphrase for this particular key if you want to use it. So a lot of times when I'm doing automation or something, depending on the platform that you're using, I don't want to have to be around to type the key in. Say you're using Ansible Tower. Well, in Ansible Tower, when you create your projects and your templates, you can put the passcode in there. But I mean, I guess I don't understand why. I don't use it. Maybe a security expert will come back and say, Todd, you really should be using passphrses. And until that point, I'm just going to put a blank passphrase, which means no passphrase. Once it's done, you'll get the image. Well, you'll get an image that just shows that it generated the key. But if you now look in that particular directory, you'll see here that we generated a private key that has no trail, and then the public key that'll end in .pub. Okay, so once we get our keys, we can take a look at them, right? So if you're on Windows, you would just type, and then let's take a look at the ID under 255.19. Oh, that's why. Okay, and that is my public key right there. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this public key. Okay, and now I got it copied. So now that I have my public key, I can then go over into my GitHub repository. So here's the simple part. You just log into your Git. Right up here in the top right-hand corner where your image is or your icon, whatever it is that you're using, you just click the down arrow next to here. You'll see at the bottom of the page there'll be a settings. From settings, we're going to come over here to the left and see this access portion of it. There's an SSH and GPC keys. We're not doing GPC keys. We're just using the SSH key. So we have a section. As you can see, I already have an SSH key here in my GitHub. I'm just going to create new SSH key. Okay, I'm going to give it a title. I'm just going to say Todd_PC. I want to make sure that authentication key is selected. I'm then going to paste in my SSH key. Now I have dual factor authentication set up for anything on my Git. So I actually have to open up a MFA program and then type in the token that it gives me. And it works automatically. And there it is. As you can see, it added my new key. So now I just have to test it and see if it works. So what I'm going to do is go into my repositories. And I see I've got a couple of them here, a couple of them that are private, a couple of them that are public. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at this Ansible controller. It's a private repository. Right now it's just blank. I'm not using it for anything. I'm going to use it. Here's how you get your SSH address. Go to your clone, go to, across the top, this would be your SSH, your HTTPS and then your SSH, and then just copy that link location. Okay, so now that I've got it copied, I can come back into my PC and I can do a git clone, and I can put that address in there. and it says it's logging in, and there it is. I cloned it. But you're like, well, Todd, how do we know that it actually used your new one? Well, not a problem. I can go in and I can go back to settings. I can go under access. I can go back to SSH. And here we go. This was not used before. And as you can see, it's used now. So I didn't have to put a username or password in my system at all. And now I have a secure method to log into my Git repository. Now, if you want to use this in automation, you're going to have to take that private key that we generated. So I only showed you the public key. Remember, there was also the private key. The public key will have a .pub at the end, and then the private key will not have an extension. It will just be that file name. So in a later video, I'm going to show you how to take that private key file, put it inside Ansible automation platform or Ansible Tower, depending on what you like to call it, and show you how we can use this key inside an automation platform, how to log into Git and do some things for us. So hopefully you liked the video. I know there's lots of other resources out there, but I figured I'd start with this video and provide you with as much as possible on the actual subject to make it easier for you. So if you got questions, let me know. Talk to y'all later.